Living in the Blind, written by Celia May, narrated by Celia May, produced by Dragon's Den Publishing Incorporated. It was late when he'd slipped out of the hospital, walking the short section of the city block to the coffee shop on the corner. He returned with 2 cups of something fancier than vending machine sludge. Blonde roast, extra espresso, whipped cream and brown sugar syrup for her, hazelnut macchiato for himself. As the elevator carried him up to the pediatric oncology ward, his thoughts turned, as they often did these days, to Callie. Their reunion had been strange. They'd started their medical training together. Back then, Callie had already been sure she wanted to be a surgeon, while he'd wavered between specialties and wondered if he'd survive. Then the scandal with her supervising physician had destroyed her path. Malpractice lawsuits, suspensions, the abrupt end of a promising fellowship track. Now, 3 years later, she was back, not in surgery, but finishing her residency under him. He had expected bitterness, but instead of letting her exile from the OR define her, she'd poured herself into caring for the children on the ward, bringing the diligence and dedication she once brought to the scalpel to the bedsides of children in crisis. Instead of awkwardness, they easily slipped back into the old rhythm of friendship. 6 months on, their nightly coffee runs were a ritual, dissecting cases, trading hospital gossip, filling the quiet stretches with conversation only 2 doctors working graveyard could appreciate. Tonight, though, as he approached the break room, he slowed. The air carried that charged weight he associated with magic, clean yet heavy, vibrating the tissues deep within his chest. And then the voices. Soft-spoken chants seeped through the slightly ajar door. He stepped close enough to peer inside. Hunched over a cheap Formica table was an adolescent boy, shirtless, bracing himself on trembling arms, his teeth pressing into his bottom lip as he fought to keep silent. Flickers of dark light rippled across his back, veins of energy searing briefly into patterns like a raked tranquility garden before vanishing again. "Jace, you okay?" Callie's voice was soft but tight with concern. "Yeah, I'm okay," the boy said through gritted teeth. "It doesn't hurt." "We're almost done." Soren lingered in the hall, the coffee cooling in his hands. Eventually, the ritual wound down, the patterns faded, and the boy's skin smoothed back to normal. Callie handed him his shirt, and he muttered as he tucked the tea over his head. "If I stayed with you, I wouldn't need this." Callie's face softened, sadness pulling at the corners of her mouth. "Even if the court allowed you to stay with us, you'd still need the seal. Dad doesn't agree with the Enclave on most things, but..." She trailed off with a shrug. "But you don't have a seal," he snapped back. Her lips pressed thin. She breathed in deeply and then out again, her shoulders rising and falling with the action. "That's not true." "I do. It's just not on my skin." "That's stupid." His tone was both skeptical and defiant. Callie only smiled. "Jace, if you had your powers back, what's the first thing you'd do? Honestly." His answer came quickly, laced with pain and simmering malice. "Get revenge." Callie nodded, almost sadly. "That's why you need the seal." "I won't pretend I don't understand. I do. If I were you, nothing would stop me either. But that's why you need limits. When you can no longer feel that hatred eating at your insides, then we'll talk about taking it off." Hypocrite. She didn't argue. She only drew him into her arms. At first he resisted, then sagged against her, clutching her back. Her voice was quiet as she rested her cheek against his hair. "Jace, the real measure of power is understanding that just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Restraint, even when it's painful, even when it feels unfair. That's what my seal is." She continued to hold him tightly, as if it was the last time she'd have the chance. When she finally let go, she slipped folded bills from her back pocket and held them out. "Here, let me know if you need more." Jace shook his head. "Just send it to my Cash App." Callie smirked as she put the money back in her pocket. "Okay." Then she added, "If anything happens, if that asshole puts his hands on you, call the police, then call me, and then text the lawyer." "Yeah." His voice was quiet. "Promise me." Yeah, I will." "Do you want me to walk you down?" "No. It's even more awkward when you and Mom are in the same room." Jace headed to the door, then hesitated at the threshold. He turned toward Callie. Why do you hate her so much? I don't. Not really. I just think she hates me. She never misses a chance to remind me that having me ruined her life. That bitch ruined her own life. Hey! Language! Her tone was soft, not scolding, but a calm reminder. He ducked out into the hall. Soren waited until he heard the elevator door slide shut, then knocked gently on the break room door and stepped inside, closing it behind him.